are live. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And we are really excited today for our speaker, who I will introduce in just a minute. But first, we have 9 classes, with a few are joint classes, joining us from across North America and literally all across North America today. So I want to give them a chance to say a bit of a hello. So first, we've got Miss Lawson's grade 2-3s in Lethbridge, Alberta. Hi, guys. Hey, Miss Lawson's group. Hi. Oh, mic's not working, but they're there and they're excited and I love it. All right. We've got Miss McDonald and Miss McNeil's 2-3-4s also in Lethbridge in Alberta. Hi, guys. Yes, and a Calgary Flames jersey, of course. Had to be there. We're getting a lot of hockey jerseys today. It's awesome. We've got Miss Matthews, grade 3-4s in Kootenay in BC. Let me pull up their mic. Hi, guys. Hey! Awesome. Always nice to have a BC class or a BC speaker. We've got Mr. Van Cleef's 5-6s in Cochrane in Ontario. Hi there, guys. Welcome in. I like when the enthusiasm's so big it makes the mic quiet itself. That's a good sign. We've got Miss Nichols, grade 1s in Sterling in Virginia. Hi, guys. Let's see if we get your mic up. Hi, everyone. Oh, a few mic difficulties today, but welcome in. Nice to have you guys be a part, and I love the fall decor. We've got Miss Gertson's grade 4s in Buhler in Kansas. Hi, guys. Awesome. And last but not least, we've got Mr. Blondeau's grade 4s in Winnipeg in Manitoba. Hi, guys. Hey, all right. A few mics that don't want to come on, but that's okay. Of course, the reason you guys are all here is for our speakers. So we are joined live by educators at Ocean Wise at the Vancouver Aquarium in beautiful British Columbia. And today, amidst all the sessions they've done with us, they're going to walk us through some really fantastic talks about Arctic animals. So one of the most unique ecosystems in the world, with a lot of really neat adaptations that are required to survive there. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the team there. And thanks so much for joining us once again. And take it away, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rachel.
And my name is Nicole.
And as Jesse said, we are here from Ocean Wise. Ocean Wise is an international ocean conservation organization that's dedicated to seeing a future where oceans are healthy and flourishing. And a part of trying to achieve that goal is talking to people all around the world and helping us to form a connection with the ocean, no matter where we are, anytime, anywhere. And we love connecting with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and doing these programs. Our office is currently located at the Vancouver Aquarium on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations peoples. So our place looks very much like a temperate rainforest. And if we think about what that looks like, it's quite cold, it's quite dark, and it is very, very wet. It rains quite a lot in Vancouver. And so take a second to think about what your place looks like. What sort of non-living factors do you have to deal with every single day? Things like temperature and light and the weather and the climate that you live in. Because today we're going to be exploring a very unique and special climate, and that is the Arctic. The Arctic is cold. It has very long summers, very long winters, and it's one of the most extreme environments on the planet, which means that the animals that live there have over millions of years evolved and adapted to live in this special place with very special traits and characteristics to help them do that. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna talk about one of my favorite animals. Nicole's gonna talk about one of her favorite animals and why we need to worry about the Arctic. Because the skills that we learn from looking at these animals, we can apply to animals where we live, and we can also apply to our actions where we live as well. Because the ocean is connected across the globe. Water can travel all over the world. And so it's important that we're paying attention to the health of that water to make sure that our planet as a whole is healthy for many, many years to come. So we're going to start off with, I said, one of my favorite animals, looking at those adaptations. And I'm going to get Jesse's help in just a moment to do some observations and whatnot. So let's take a look at what the Arctic looks like, or at least part of the Arctic. The Arctic, a lot of people, this comes to mind when they think of the Arctic, a big, vast landscape of ice. And that is a critical component of the ecosystem. Ice plays a super important role. It is their home. Imagine if your home was floating on top of the ocean. Ice plays a very similar role. We've got lots of animals requiring this structure in order to travel, in order to find food, in order to hide from predators. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Now, the animal that I want to introduce you to is a very charismatic and a very loud animal. They make some very bizarre noises, and that is this cutie right here. Some of you might have seen this animal before, maybe you haven't, but as all scientists do, we want to start off with some observations. So looking at what we see on this animal and starting to make some guesses as to how it's able to survive in the Arctic. So what I'd like to do, Jesse, with your help, is let's go to 3 classrooms and get some observations and see what do you see that stands out about this animal.
All right, well, let's start with Miss Lawson's class then. What do you guys see when you guys are looking at the wall? Our guy here, what's going on? Oh, let's see if we can get your mic. We are having the weirdest mic things today. Okay, so Miss Lawson, I'm going to come back to you guys in just a second. Miss McDonald's class, what do you guys see when you're looking at this creature? What jumps out? Oh. Yeah, what was that?
An adorable animal.
An adorable animal. But what about some of its features? What's on it? What does it look like? Tusks, okay. Oh, I see people like mimicking tusks too. Very cool, okay. So you've got some tusks. What else? How about Miss Henstridge's class? What do you guys see? Let's see.
I see tusks and I see a seal. No, not a seal. A walrus. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Big
Cool.
tusks we got. Okay, how about Mr. Van Cleef's class? What do you guys see? Other than tusks, anything else jump out?
It has a mustache.
A mustache.
That's it. Excellent. Well, that was some fantastic observations, everyone. And already you have picked up on some of those key adaptations that are going to help walrus survive in the Arctic. They are a very special animal. They're part of the pinniped group, which means they are the cousins to things like the sea lions, seals, fur seals, animals like that. So walruses, when they're young, this is a picture of 2 baby walruses, only a year old, and still they have that prominent mustache. This is probably one of the most important features that we see on many different animals that live in the water, because the water, when you're down there, it can be very dark. And also walruses live where there is a sandy bottom. And as you're swimming, if you kick up the sand, it starts to become very cloudy and very difficult to see. So I'd like you to imagine, if you close your eyes and imagine that you're standing in your bedroom and you have to get from your door to your bed. What part of your body are you going to use to help you find your way? You can show me what you end up doing. Yeah, I see a lot of people kind of like, Excellent, exactly. When we are trying to find our way around an ecosystem, like our bedroom, we are using our hands and our touch to find our way through. So walruses and many other animals use a similar characteristic. They have those whiskers. They're highly sensitive whiskers, and that allows them to feel their way through the environment in order to find things like food and able to find all the wonderful clams that they like to eat. Now, I have already given you a hint that walruses eat clams, but they have these wonderful giant tusks when they become adult. And many people think that the tusks are meant for breaking open clams. But when you look at the tusks and they're all the way down there, I find it hard to think of how a giant tooth could break open a clam. It might be a little bit awkward to then eat. So if the tusks are not used for eating the clams, I'd like to know what your thoughts are and what you think those tusks might be used for. So Jesse, if we could go to 2 more classrooms, someone we haven't talked to yet, and get some of their hypothesis. What do you think those tusks might be used for, if not for food?
Yeah, so let's go to Miss Nichols' group. What do you guys think? When you see the tusks, what are they for?
What are the tusks for? Other than opening clams.
Not opening clams. What else? Do you guys have any other thoughts?
To catch fish.
Oh, maybe to catch fish?
Maybe
It's a
to catch
clever
fish.
idea.
Yeah, okay. How about Mr. Blondeau's class? What do you guys think? Let's see. Oh, we have more mic difficulties. More mic difficulties. That's okay. Oh, there we go.
Defense? Oh, excellent. Awesome. So that is one of those big survival things that animals have to worry about. If they're not using something for food, they're going to use something to help protect themselves or to help move around. We already know walruses do not use their tusks for food. They actually use them to help pull their massive bodies out of the water because walruses can weigh over 1,000 pounds. So you would need more students than just what you have in your room right now in order to make that weight. They are massive, massive animals, and they have to be able to pull themselves out of the water when they want to get onto the ice. And they go onto the ice in order to have their pups, in order to rest, in order to take a break, and sometimes to hide from predators like orca whales or leopard seals or big carnivores that might eat them in the water. So walruses we've looked at, they've got some very cool adaptations, very thick, fat blubber to help them deal with the cold. They've got those tusks to help pull their giant bodies up onto the ice, and they've got their whiskers for finding their way around. And then there's also lots of other different types of animals, of course, that live in the Arctic. And Nicole, if you'd like to share a little bit more about one of your favorite animals too.
Yeah, my favorite animals is actually this white, big, huge beluga whale. So I'm gonna ask you, because just now you learned about how actually walruses adapt to their environment. So now is my question for you to think about, what kind of adaptation do beluga whales have in order to survive in a very cold environment? So Jessie, I need your help in order to choose some of the friends in order to answer the questions.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to start again with this Lawson group. See if they have their mic working now. Let's see what we have. Fingers crossed.
Yep, sure.
Beluga whales. What do you guys think? Okay, so we've got a beluga whale up on screen. Any thoughts on what they, some adaptations for them? Have your mic working? Oh, no. Okay. I'm going to go to Miss Henstridge's class again. What do you guys think?
Adaptation, cool.
They have blubber.
Yeah. Good answer. And what is blubber? Can you tell us what blubber is?
It's like rubber, kind of. It's
like rubber. Very rhyming. I like it. Blubber is like rubber. All right. How about Miss Gertson's class? What do you guys think?
Their big heads are used for echolocation.
Very cool. All right. So yeah, let's turn it back to our team at Ocean Wise.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good answer from you guys. So just now we talked about how walruses have blubber, and also belugas got their bubblers too. So I want you to now try things out. So I want you to put up your hands like this, and then you stretch out your thumb and also your pinky, and then put it onto your belly button. And then that is the thickness of the blubber of a beluga. It's so thick that they can actually keep themselves warm under cold environment because they need to travel and they have to swim a very, very long range of waters in order to find a food, such as fish, like cod, or even Arctic organisms too. So it's very important for us to really have that thick layer of fats. So just now, one of your friends actually tell us about echolocation. That is very, very good examples of how beluga actually adapt to the environment. So there's a bumpy melon on their head. So I'm going to show you that picture again. Yeah, so you can see a very bumpy forehead, and then they use that in order to create sounds, clicks, in order to find their food. And when the clicks bounce back from that prey or even some objects, and then they will actually estimate the distance between the beluga whale itself and also the food or the predators around them as well. So it's very, very nice to have those echolocation and also the structure in order to find a food, and also to avoid from being eaten by all the predators like orcas, whale, and also polar bear. So it's a very, very nice one. And the other adaptation from the belugas is that they don't have dorsal fin. Can you show me where is the dorsal fin? Just in your body language. It's actually right here. Imagine you're a fish. When you go to swim, you have the fins on both of your side, your body side, but actually there is another dorsal fin at the back of your body. So it helps you to swim and propel you against the water current. So now, can you see that dorsal fin in the beluga's body? No, you cannot see that because it's actually an evolution adaptation for the beluga, because they need to swim under the water. They want to reduce the heat loss. So as time goes by, the dorsal fin disappears from the beluga as well in order to adapt to the environment and to reduce the heat loss there. So there's a lot of different kind of adaptations, and we need to learn more about them as well. But I'm going to share with you a little sound emitted by the beluga whale, so that you can know how they actually use their bumpy melon head in order to communicate with each other. Right. So I'm going to share with you a little soundtrack now. Oh, it's not working.
Oh, wants to work.
Let me try.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, that's odd.
Yeah, there's no sounds here.
You keep talking.
Maybe these belugas are mute and they can't actually.
Yeah,
they're very quiet
my
belugas.
problem is kind of.
Yeah, funny
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, but it's all right. I can tell you something about the sound of the beluga. It's actually very high pitch, and when there are scientists actually going down on, oops, there it is.
All right, keep going. I'll
Yeah.
play it in a second.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I'm going to share with you what the scientists have recorded underneath the Arctic area, which is very surprising. So I'm gonna share with you with the sound. All right. Ooh, you know what? That is actually the sound emitted from a ship vessel. So can you think of why there is a ship vessel there near the Arctic area? So Jesse, I need your help again.
Yeah, so we're asking why would there be ships near the Arctic?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So how about Miss Matthews' class? What do you guys think? Why are there ships up in the Arctic?
So why do you guys think there's ships in the Arctic?
Because
So Sunny, answer loudly.
because maybe they have to like bring cargo to other places.
Yeah.
Mhm.
great answer.
That's
All right.
good.
Target other places. How about Mr. Van Cleef's class again? Guys?
To deliver supplies.
Oh, could you repeat that a little louder?
To deliver supplies.
Deliver supplies, yeah. And then we got a group on YouTube talking about people might be learning about the Arctic. So a ship taking people to the Arctic just so that people could experience the region. Very cool, guys.
Yeah, that's true. So besides researching about the Arctic, actually people transport their goods through the channels around the Arctic. So they bring in a lot of goods to people that is living remotely, but at the same time, they bring pollutions, they bring a lot of pollutants there as well. So it's actually threatening the lives in the Arctic. And if you just listen to the sound of the ship vessel, it's actually similar to the sound emitted by the beluga. So if belugas need to communicate with under those noises, they cannot talk to the friends or their families or even to find a food or prey very effectively. So this is a threat that we're facing in the Arctic. But belugas, they have noise pollution here, they have water pollution in the Arctic. But what about the walruses? As Rachel mentioned before, they need the tugs and they need to hold on to the ice in order to find their food or rest on the ice. But now if there's water pollution over there, the population of the walruses might be decreasing as well. And besides noise pollution, water pollution, there is a main threat happening in the Arctic and also around the world, that is climate change. So because human activities, we tend to use a lot of electricity. We want our life to be better. So we try to take a lot of fossil fuels in the Arctic and also from around the world in order to generate electricity. But at the same time, greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide is emitted. So it makes the world much more warmer. The sea temperature is increasing and the ice in the Arctic and also in different areas are actually decreasing as well. There's shrinkage for the ice coverage. And every year in the summer, the melting of ice is getting more increasing in seriously. And because of that, the ice getting thinner and thinner, the walrus just cannot hold themselves onto the ice easier than before. So now the walruses are actually in danger as well, and also for the belugas because of the noise pollution, or the water pollution. That's why their number are decreasing as well. So it's time for us to really think about something in order to help them. So for scientists, they are trying to investigate the cause of climate change, to investigate the behavior of the belugas, and also try to know more about the Arctic. But what about us? What can we do in order to help the environment, such as the Arctic and also the animals around us as well? So I want you to whisper to your friends nearby and think of ways in order to really tackle the problem at source.
Or shout it out. Don't need to just whisper.
Yeah.
These are important topics. These are things that we should all be thinking about as classes. And again, you highlighted such amazing animals and the threats that are facing them. And this is true for creatures all over the world, but especially in our polar regions. And so as a class, and we'll get to this in Q&A as well, but it's exciting to be able to think of solutions that we can implement to help protect species like this in these amazing places on the globe. So yeah, thanks.
And there are lots of other animals, so I think now is a really good time that if you have questions, if there are things that you're thinking about, maybe we can start doing that Q&A, and we'll explore a little bit more about the Arctic together.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. Thanks so much, ladies. That was an amazing presentation. And so we're going to dive in with Q&A. I want to note for our classes live. So we've got a few mic difficulties. That's okay. At the bottom of your screen is a little chat bar, and you can type in questions there that I'll share with the team at Ocean Wise if you're having mic issues. We also have a ton of groups, 16 currently watching from all over the US and Canada on YouTube, which is fantastic. So please, if you guys haven't typed in questions, please do. I'm really excited for questions from Miss Fry's class, Miss Fletcher's class, especially small towns. We'd love to get questions from classes that might not otherwise ever get a chance to visit somewhere like the Vancouver Aquarium. So please do type in those questions. And with that, let's dive in. So I'm going to start with Miss McDonald's class. If you guys have a question to kick us off, come on up.
We're just finding someone.
Yeah, it's okay.
I love your sweater, by the way.
Yeah. You're good. Hi. Yeah, you're good.
Do people live in the Arctic?
Yeah.
That's a very good question, indeed. Actually, a lot of people living near the Arctic. So in Canada, we have a territory called Nunavut, and then there's Arctic people living there as well. So what they do is actually they hunt for animals in order to keep them alive. Because if you imagine when we have cargoes going to the Arctic, it will cause a lot of pollution. And if we have food from the other side of the world, or even in places in the south, it actually costs more in order for the people in order to get more food. So instead, they choose local food, like some belugas or even seals, in order to keep them alive.
Yeah, there's several communities of Inuit people living along the northern coast, particularly in Canada. And as Nicole said, they'll do local hunts. And we've actually had the privilege of working with a community up in a great place called Taktayaktak, which when they do their annual beluga hunt, they donated some of the stomachs from the belugas to our plastic research team. So they were able to do dissections and find out if there were microplastics inside the belugas and the food that they eat, which unfortunately, yes, there were microfibers in there. But those kind of connections are very important to us, and also just to learn what their lifestyles are like as well.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, ladies. All right, we're going to check in with Miss Lawson's class. We're going to get that mic working. I believe in it. So Miss Lawson, you guys should be good to go. And then worst case, we'll do chat, but let's see if we can hear you guys. Yeah, I think you're good, actually.
What animal is the most that lives in the Arctic is the most closest to being extinct?
The most closest to being extinct in the Arctic. The walruses are the one that we're most concerned about at the moment. But honestly, there is a lot that we don't know about the Arctic. So it's very difficult to answer that question just because there is a lot that we haven't explored yet, and we don't have numbers on a lot of these species. So I think that there's several species we're concerned about, walruses and walruses being a pivotal one, but I can't give you a specific answer because there's still a lot that we don't know.
Right. Great answer. And I mean, again, this is something where more research is needed, and we love to highlight this in all our sessions, that there's so much more science to be done. I think a lot of people assume that, oh, we've done it all, we've explored it all, and we're just scratching the surface, especially as the world is changing so much. So thanks, ladies. All right, Miss Matthews group, if you guys have a question, come on up.
Hello, my name is.
Hello, my name is Isaac, and my question is, what speed is the ice melting?
Yeah.
In the
What speed is the ice melting in the Arctic? That is a great question, Isaac. I will be honest, I don't actually know the answer to that. So I probably should have prefaced it. I'm personally not an Arctic expert. I've done a little bit of research myself, but I don't know the number off the top of my head. Jesse, are you familiar with that number?
The speed at which the Arctic's melting? No, not offhand. I know that it's faster than we expected, it's faster than we predicted, and it's not good.
So Isaac, the trend that we're seeing, so the pattern that we're seeing right now is that the ice is melting earlier in the year and it's not returning as early as it should have. So the ice is staying melted in larger numbers and for longer. So that's the current pattern we're seeing, and that's why we're worried. But I really encourage you to do your own research and dive into that and see if you can find some of those statistics yourself.
Yeah, excellent question, guys, and I'm glad we got it brought up. All right, I want to pass along the question from Miss Fry's class in Hallsville, Texas. So thanks so much for typing it in on YouTube, guys. So they wanted to ask, what are some other Arctic animals that interact with walrus and beluga?
That is a great question. Nicole, do you want to share one that you were familiar with?
Yeah, so we just mentioned before, besides belugas and then also the walruses, we actually have polar bear as well. So polar bear is an endangered species, as everybody knows, and they are actually the top predators on the food chain in the Arctic. So they usually hunt for belugas and also seals in order to have food and have high proteins intakes. But now, because of the shrinkage of the ice, the polar bear cannot find an ice in order to rest, and then also they usually walk a very long distance in order to find food near the edge of the ice. But now, because of the ice are shrinking and also they fall apart, so they can only swim for a very, very long time in order to find their food. But in that way, they actually use up a lot of energy. So a lot of, if you take a look at the pictures online, you will see there's a lot of polar bears with very, very skinny body, and they're actually having a difficulty in finding food. So now scientists and also different kind of job occupations are looking for solutions in order to help those animals, including polar bears.
And the animals that I want to highlight, because I think they get forgotten quite a bit, is their Arctic food web is very large. It's got lots of these large mammals, but it also has smaller organisms that support them that those big animals have to eat. So we actually do have quite a lot of invertebrates, so boneless animals that you can find up in the Arctic. This is just a few pictures of them. We've got some worms, we've got some sea stars, jellyfish, squid, sea anemones. There are lots of different of these non-bony animals that live up in the Arctic as well. So something else, if you're curious and you want to look at some weird and wonderful creatures, you can definitely check out some of the invertebrates that live up in the Arctic as well.
Very cool. So I also want to pass along one more quick question for Mr. Hancock's group, grade 4s in Georgetown, who are easily the most participatory YouTube class we ever have ever. I think they've sent in 50 questions since we've started, so appreciate that so much more than we could possibly take. But their last question was a really interesting one. Could an animal that doesn't live in the Arctic survive the Arctic, and could animals that live in the Arctic survive elsewhere? And this is something that we're seeing with range changes around the world with animals, so it's a really topical and great question.
That's a very good question. So what we're seeing right now is animals that are designed to live in the Arctic, like polar bears, like walruses, they're designed for cold. So they're not going to be able to do very well in warm areas. And as we're seeing the oceans get warmer, the regions that Arctic animals can go is getting smaller and smaller because they're only designed to live in cold. But as oceans get warmer, other animals that live more south of the Arctic are able to go more north because it's getting warmer. So we're actually starting to see grizzly bears, we're starting to see red foxes, we're starting to see orca whales, all of these southern species that normally had a barrier that they couldn't cross. They're able to go farther and farther north, which means that they can outcompete other animals. It means they can eat the other animals. And it also means that there's potential for more diseases in the Arctic too. So yes, but animals still have a certain limit to where they can go. But if the ocean's getting warmer, it means warm water animals are really in luck because they can go farther.
Yeah. All right. Great answer, guys. Let's go to Miss Henstridge's class. If you guys have a question, come on up.
Are Arctic foxes endangered?
That's a good question. Again, we're missing a lot of data, so we don't have a lot of information. What we've been observed so far is they are being outcompeted by the red fox. So as I mentioned, the red fox can go more north. It eats the same things that the Arctic fox would. So that is really a big threat for Arctic foxes at the moment, but we don't know a lot about the numbers of their population. So it's hard to say how endangered they are. They are of concern for sure.
Yeah. They're really, I encourage the classes to look up Arctic foxes too, because they're a really interesting animal that has completely different coats for summer and winter. So they're a really beautiful example of that in the Arctic.
The Arctic hare is a really good example of that too. And with changing snow and everything, that might get stuck with its wrong coat, which is interesting.
Yeah, very neat. All right, Mr. Van Cleef's class, if you guys have a question, go for it. Come on up.
What would happen if your aquarium shut down to the hurt animals? Would they die?
Oh, okay. So what would happen if our aquarium was no longer able to take the hurt animals?
Yeah.
That is a very good question. Thank you. We are determined to try and help those animals wherever we can. We are the only team in Canada that's able to readily mobilize to help animals across Canada that need help. So I would be very concerned if that were to happen. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans is a big help to us. So I would hope that they would be able to take up some of the weight. But honestly, it's a bit of a dire feature, and I hope we don't have to worry about that. But that's always a priority for us, is helping injured and distressed marine mammals if we can.
All right. And again, no sign of that happening. You guys should be good for many, many years to come. I wanted to pass another question along from Miss Hooker's class, grade 3s in Mechanicsville in Virginia. And they wanted to ask, how cold is it in the Arctic, guys?
Yeah, so for the Arctic, the coldest weather there would be -7 degrees Celsius. So it's much more colder than we thought as well. So you might probably have to wear a lot of clothes, just like this length, in order to keep you warm, just like a beluga.
Yeah, sorry, we speak in Celsius. I don't know the conversion to Fahrenheit off the top of my head. So -70?
Yeah,
it's really bad. Like -40 is when they equalize. So -40 in Fahrenheit and Celsius are the exact same. So you can think of how cold that would be. Nunavut was -54 with a wind chill the other day somewhere. But interestingly, in the summer, the Arctic can get quite warm too, so that's worth mentioning. And a lot of people don't bring that up with the Arctic, but the summer season can be beautiful. It can be 15, 20 degrees Celsius, or like 50 degrees to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, the diversity.
24-hour sun too.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's take a question from Miss Nichols' group. Come on up, guys. Oh, they have to go. They have to go. All right, well, let's go to Miss Gertson's group. If you guys have a question, go for it.
Stand up. There you go. What is the most endangered animal you have at the aquarium?
Oh, cool question. The most endangered animal we have at the aquarium. We have a few of them. I think one that's interesting to mention is there's a species of frog called the Panamanian golden frog. And so this frog is believed to be extant from the wild, which means it no longer exists in the wild. However, when scientists noticed that this population was diminishing, they actually took some populations from the wild and started holding them in conservation facilities like ours, and they're working on breeding them. So that way it's called an insurance population. So should that species go extinct from the wild, which we believe it has, once that wild is safe again for the animals, we should be able to re-release them. So that's probably one of the most endangered species that we have in-house, and it's because it's a part of a species survival project.
All right, very cool, guys. So I want to pass on a few more questions from YouTube, then we're going to wrap it up with one from Mr. Blondeau's class. Again, we have way more questions than we could possibly take in every session we do with you guys, which is a thrill. So I'll be sure to ask how classes can ask more when we're done. Mr. Aiken's class, grade 5-6 in London, Ontario, they wanted to ask this so badly, which is, do jellyfish live in the Arctic?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, lots of species. It's quite amazing actually across Canada and the States where you'll find jellyfish, places you wouldn't normally expect. They're a really, really common group of organisms that we find pretty much everywhere, and especially in places where other animals are having trouble. Jellyfish tend to have population explosions to sort of exploit the chaos, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty nice when you have no brain and no heart. You're a pretty easy organism.
All right, Miss Fletcher's group, grade 5s in Rio in Wisconsin, and they wanted to ask, So we've got a lot of questions about specific animals being endangered, but are Arctic cod endangered? Do you guys know offhand?
I don't know offhand, but I think that is a very good question because that is such a staple species. Not only do the people of the Arctic use that as one of their primary protein sources, but also to all of those animals that we have already talked about, like the walrus, or not the walrus, but sorry, the beluga whale, the polar bear, seals. The Arctic cod is that middle man that is eaten by a lot of big animals, but also eats a lot of the little animals. So I don't know the current status of their populations, but it's definitely a good one to look at because if they're not doing well, then we know the rest of the food web is going to suffer. So please do some research and then email us and let us know because I'm very curious what you find.
Yeah. All right. And then Miss Lumley's group wants to ask, they're in Sarnia, Ontario. They wanted to ask how many kinds of animals are in the Arctic? Do you have any idea offhand?
There's a lot. What's really cool about the Arctic is there are animals from every different group other than reptiles. So there are no reptiles, there are no amphibians up in the Arctic. There is a frog that is in northern Ontario, which is pretty cool, but the Arctic does not have reptiles or amphibians. It has everything else. Even birds, like seabirds, are a very important part of the food web. So again, I'm sorry, I don't know specific numbers off the top of my head. What's more important, I think personally, is thinking about how those animals survive, because the how is going to help us answer the questions that are being coming up with climate change and with pollution and all that kind of stuff. So numbers are very cool. And if you find numbers, definitely go for it. But I challenge you to think a little bit more on the how and the why and those kind of adaptation questions, because that's really what, as scientists and as citizens, we start to look at, because that's going to help us solve problems moving forward.
Very cool. Thanks, Rachel. I want to urge the classes too. So for that specific frog in Northern Ontario, and certainly for some fish in the Antarctic regions, they have some amazing methods and adaptations to survive extreme cold, like antifreeze proteins in their blood. So some really cool stuff to check out. I encourage you guys to look that up as well. All right, again, before we wrap up, we're going to do one more question with a live class, and then we'll find out how classes can learn more. So Mr. Blondeau's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
How many animals are in the Arctic?
Specifically, like how many? Count them, Rachel.
I might have to come back to you on that one.
Yeah.
So again, do some research and see if you can find that answer, okay?
Yeah, it's really, but one of the things that I love to share about the Arctic is that it's an ecosystem like the Antarctic where people assume that there'd be few species here, few and far between, or small groups of animals. And in Arctic Canada, one of the greatest migratory herds of the entire world is of caribou. So we're talking like hundreds of thousands of caribou, if not millions. And so there's things to look at like that that are really, really neat and highlight the diversity and proliferation of life in a region that most people don't expect, which is really cool. Guys, this has been great. Again, way more questions that we could possibly share. So for you two ladies, is there a place where kids can go to learn more about the aquarium, to learn more about Arctic animals and more? Where can we point all our classrooms on YouTube and live?
Yeah, sure. Actually, besides talking to us, you can actually go online in order to learn more. So we only know about 5% of the ocean, and it's very important for us to keep our curiosity in order to search for information and really think about how and why we have to protect the environment. So now we're going to give you a website. Oh, you can just tell them the link. Yeah, I will just put it on the link, and then you guys can actually surf online and then just find more information. And usually, actually, you can actually play with the games online, and then also do some quizzes on your own to make sure you know about the ocean as well. So besides learning about that, make sure you remember you have to take actions in order to help the environment and also cope with the climate change that happens around us too.
Yeah. So education.ocean.org is our home base for all of those games, resources, activities, things that you can check out. And Nicole's going to pop it into the chat window. And also too, if you would like to continue the conversation with us, we do have a program called the Virtual Aqua Class, which is a live presentation just like this, but between you and us directly. And so you can answer all of those questions that you have, and we can customize it to what you're interested in learning about as well. So online, check out the classroom, as well as consider meeting us again live with the Virtual Aqua Class.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, guys. And I'll be sure to share all those links from their classes when we're done, including the ones on YouTube. So thanks so much for being a part. What we do at the end of every session is I'm going to demute every class's microphones. And so boys and girls, if you guys can get ready to join me in saying a huge thank you to the ladies at Ocean Wise for joining us today. You are all now demuted and go for it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
It's always fun for me. All right. Thanks so much, guys, to all our classes. We really appreciate you being here today. Do look for those links in your inbox in just a minute. And thanks again to the team at Ocean Wise for joining us today. It was fantastic. Thanks so much.
Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye.